What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Six Rings Cane Show, joined by Danny Gillette, Paul Austria, and special guest, Gaby Urrutia from 24/7 Canes and 24/7 Sports inside the U. What's going on, Gaby? Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Can you guys hear?
What's going on, guys? Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. Just want to make sure you hear me okay.
Good.
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Good. All right, awesome. Obviously, we've come into this situation now where the Kings are essentially have a 2-week bye again, as the ACC has to reschedule, 3 of their games, right, due to COVID-19 issues with the football program, and looks like maybe, hopefully, wishful thinking is we might not have to play one of those games if by some miracle we get into the ACC championship game. That'll be nice. So we decided to kind of go a different route and just talk a lot of recruiting today. We've got obviously Gaby Urrutia on with us today. We've got a lot of recruiting news to go through. Obviously, some big high school football games this weekend as well. I'm sure, Gaby, you'll be at that big Northwestern American Heritage game. And talk about a little bit about filling out the rest of the 2020 class, but also talk a little bit about the guys that we already have committed that could make a big contribution next year with this Canes program. Obviously, we're hoping for a couple of these guys to come back next year that are already on the program, because I think it's just going to build that depth, which is something that we do need on this team. I think first and foremost. You're starting to see a lot of players and the coaching staff really start to gel, especially on the offensive side of the football. You're starting to see the wide receivers starting to step up now, and we've got some really good wide receivers that are being recruited for that 2021 class as well, along with the running game starting to step up a little bit, and also De'Aaron King. Starting to play a little, not starting to play a little bit better, but starting to put everything together as well from a running standpoint and from throwing the football. So I definitely want to get started with the guys that we have committed right now. Again, we're getting to early signing period, which is when exactly, Gaby? When's early signing period?
I think it's actually a month from today. So I think a month from right now we'll have an idea. We'll have a good idea of who signed early with Miami and also find maybe a couple more answers yet to make decisions yet.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah. So a month away, folks, which is going to come up real quick. And we'll definitely talk about that. I guess the first guys, I know Danny Gillette has a question for you, so we'll kind of go around the horn here on a couple of questions for you, Gaby, on the recruiting front. Go ahead, Danny.
All right. So the question I have, Gaby, is Patrick. He is committed to Nebraska right now, but Miami has been recruiting him. Do you think they have a shot, or do you think that Patrick Payton is firmly committed to Nebraska?
Patrick Payton is committed to Nebraska, but I guess the caveat there is that he actually has never been over there. Like, he's never been to Nebraska. He's never stepped foot on their campus. So there's a chance that not only Miami, there's other schools that are involved here that could potentially flip him as well. Obviously got a huge rankings bump in yesterday's 24/7 update for his class. He's now the 150 ranked player in the country. So he's a guy that's been incredible all season long for like just huge senior season. Honestly, he had a huge junior year at Miami High. He had like 17 and a half sacks. And I mean, this is just a kid that's just freaky. He's just gotten really big. I think that this is a guy that Miami could potentially go after. I actually wrote a piece today for the Inside Use VIP subscribers, kind of talking a little bit about how Miami could potentially use one of these 3 or 4 spots left to just go best player available. And if they did choose to go best player available, I think Miami's circling Pat Payton as that guy, because you can't teach that size. He has a frame where there's just so much room to just get him bigger, faster, stronger with it. Like he's not like a very like bulky guy. He's pretty thin, just has a unique ability to get to the quarterback. So I definitely think that there's a chance that Miami makes a move there. I know that the 2 parties have been in contact. Nothing like, I guess, firm has happened, but again, like, we've talked about, Miami's not playing for these next 2 weeks. So we might see the staff make some moves on the recruiting trail, and Pat Payton could definitely be one of those guys if Miami chooses to pursue him that way.
Gabby, you mentioned something that I wanted to bring up quickly. Also, was the ratings bumps that a lot of these kids that are committed to the Canes got yesterday. Obviously, Leonard. How exciting is it for us to have now the number 1 player in Florida and the number 3 player in Florida, right? With Leonard Taylor and James Williams committed to the Canes. That is huge. But of course, some other kids that got the ratings bumps. Talk to us a little bit about those kids that are committed already to the program that got the ratings bumps and what that does all together, all in for this Miami Hurricanes program from a recruiting perspective, but also are these kids, ratings bumps or not? Obviously, a lot of these kids have talent, but is it something where you say, oh, well, the ratings bump doesn't really mean much. I mean, they are talented, or maybe if someone takes a hit on the ratings, is it warranted? Is it something that we're just going to continue to see?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm understanding your question correctly, I mean, I just think that.
You just think that you're going to get kicked out of we lost Gabby right when it was getting good.
He dropped. I didn't kick him off. He dropped.
Yeah, no, I think he was having some issues, so we'll wait for him to get back on. But
Either that or the recruiting gods don't want you to know.
I wouldn't doubt it,
man.
Hey, I'm sorry, guys. I think I lost you guys for a second, or something happened.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. You're
the
good.
audio was choppy and stuff. I had a feeling that something was going down there. So I mean, you went in and out a lot, so no surprise that I guess I lost you. But I think if I understand your question correctly, you're just saying like pretty much just like how warranted are these ranking bumps or decreases? Is that essentially what you asked?
Yeah, and who took the biggest leap? Also, obviously.
Yeah, so in Miami's class, the guy that took the biggest leap was Miami Palmetto wide receiver Bashar Smith. He was ranked a 3-star before. A lot of people were calling for him to get his 4th star, and once we were able to kind of see him in person, I think that was it was definitely a no-brainer. He's grown to about 5'10". He's just a playmaker. He's not just a slot guy. This is a guy that can go out there and just make plays all over the field. So Bashar Smith got a very well-deserved, earned a very well-deserved 4th star and a spot in the top 247. So he definitely got the biggest ratings bump. Not a huge bump, but a pretty, I guess, meaningful one was from Leonard Taylor. Just moved from the number 4 overall player to the number 3 overall player. And what that did was allowed him to jump IMG Academy JC Latham as the number 1 overall player in the state of Florida. And I think just from I would say just from like a momentum standpoint, just to kind of say and maybe like pound your chest and say Miami signed the number 1 player in the state. I think that's definitely a big deal. So I think that's just big for the program in my head, I don't have it the last time Miami signed the top player from Florida, especially since like the inception of IMG. I can't imagine it's been any time in recent history that Miami signed the top player from Florida. Just because obviously those guys get guys from all over the country to go play there. And then James Williams, of course, dropped a spot, but again, that's not really like dropping a spot. Like really, when it's like literally like a few spots like that, it's really just because someone moved up. It's not really that he moved down or did anything wrong. So James Williams obviously still rated up there.
There it is. That's the look we're going for right there from Gabby.
Stop.
We lost him again.
Dang.
Oh man, you got to get better internet like I did. All right, I switched my internet today, man. I switched my internet to AT&T, and now I got.
Oh my god.
That was definitely Manny. I was like, don't do this to me, bro. Don't do this to me, man.
Perfect timing, impeccable timing.
Oh man. Well, before Gabby gets back on, yeah, we noticed that, right? Leonard Taylor and James Williams are still. I mean, that's exciting, man. We got the number 1. What is the number 1 player in Florida? So the last time we had that, hey, don't worry about it, brother. It's all right, man.
I'm sorry.
I think the last time we had that happen was. Well, at least even signing 2 5-star players or more was when we had Marcus Forston, Arthur Brown, and I think Brandon Harris, the 2008 class.
Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot. I think Arthur Brown was the number 1 player in the country that year. I don't even know now, but I know obviously we had the Northwestern, I don't know, the Fab 8 or something like that. How many kids committed
it was 8 of them, yeah.
that year? But I think that was the last time, Gabby, that we had that. So it's kind of exciting to see. Obviously, most of those guys didn't pan out, right? Brandon Harris, I think, had the best career out of all of them, getting drafted early and all that. But it's exciting to see.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting, and it's good for this Miami program. Really, what they needed to do this year was win, and being 7-1, obviously helps a lot. Like, they obviously were able to do this in the summer before the season started, but really to retain this, to keep this moving forward, like Miami needed to win some games. And the fact that they're 7-1 right now, yeah, you know what? It's not always pretty, but at the end of the day, like when a recruit's looking at Miami, they're seeing that they're the number 12 team in the country and that they have one loss. Like they're seeing that Manny Diaz went from 6 wins to 7-1, like 6-7 to 7-1. Like that's obviously like very like tangible improvement that you could sell very easily as a program. And especially with like guys like Leonard Taylor and James Williams bought in and all that stuff, it definitely helps carry that momentum forward.
Well, let me ask you this question, because I think you brought up something here, and regarding the ratings bumps and all that. You've seen a lot of football games this year, right? A lot of high school games, a lot of players that are committed to Miami, a lot of guys that might commit to Miami. Who has surprised you the most on the field that you said, wow, I mean, this kid's better than we thought? Because we don't talk about a lot of kids that are committed, like the Lawrence Seymours of the world, and some other kids, the big
Alan Hay.
McLaughlin, Alan Hay. I mean, those guys, we don't talk about those guys enough. Who have you seen that you said, wow, this kid is better than either his ranking or just better all around than you thought?
Are you talking about like just commit, like just the Miami commits, or like anybody?
Yeah, guys that are committed. Yeah.
Guys that are committed, honestly, I had never seen, imagine, because I'm new to all this sort of, I'd never seen Bashar Smith play, and watching him play in person, like I just thought, like almost like everybody else, that he was a smaller slot guy, like he's a guy we can throw in at the slot, and yeah, it's really good and all that stuff, and it's very helpful. But when I actually watched him and just kind of seen everything that he did, imagine last Friday he had to play Wildcat quarterback because Kevin Smith like injured his leg, and he just kind of stepped up and ran the ball like for 120 yards and a touchdown in a playoff game against a 5-1 team from Orlando. So Bashar Smith is just like a do-it-all type of dude. So he's definitely impressed me. Alan Hay, you mentioned Alan Hay. I've seen some things from him. I watched him play twice. I watched him against American Heritage. I watched him against Bishop Verot and Fort Myers. And he showed some flashes again. Like, he's obviously a big body. Tyler Johnson is another guy that's impressed me. Like obviously Miami's taking him as a linebacker. I think he has a very unique ability as an edge rusher, just like kind of like cut from like the Sam Brooks cloth. I think he's very explosive. I'm kind of excited to see how he eventually develops into that linebacker position. Ryan Rodriguez as a center really, really impressed me. So I got to watch Ryan Rodriguez play against Killian and Tyler Johnson, and Columbus's center went down with an injury, and I'm pretty sure he's been playing center ever since. But it was one of those situations where he was playing, I think it was guard or something, left or right guard. I think it was right guard, and he had to shift over to center, and he just looked so natural. He looked so natural at the center position. Just handled that whole situation really, really well. Was pretty dominant at like the point of contact. So Ryan Rodriguez is another guy that I know the whole network is pretty high on him for him to be like the number 3 ranked center in the whole country. But I was definitely excited to see him as a center prospect as well.
Well, you went up to Bishop Verot. You got to see Alan Hay play. Talk to me about Malik Curtis and how explosive he is, because that's the guy that I keep getting back to, saying the wide receiver position needs to have that kind of, that kid that's just going to go off. I think Malik Curtis could be that guy.
Yeah, so Malik Curtis is also a guy I've been able to see twice because I got to see him. He came down to the east coast of Florida and he played at American Heritage Delray, and I went to go see him up there. Just really fast, like honestly, like there's really no other way to put it. He's really explosive. Against Chaminade, I think he drew like 2 pass interferences on just go routes, like just run faster than everybody else. And instead of letting him catch it, they just kind of hit him around and, took the 15-yard penalty or whatever the penalty is in high school. So super, super fast. Teams literally defensive, like their defensive game plan is centered around Malik Curtis. I do honestly like his potential as a cornerback. I think he has a lot of the skill sets that kind of, that could potentially be really valuable at that spot, especially given his kind of history on the offensive side. Definitely understand the intrigue on the offensive side. Just again, one of those guys that he's just, if you get him in open space, you're just not going to catch him. I don't know how great of a route runner he is. Again, he's just much faster than everybody else. It's a lot of handoffs, a lot of deep balls, a lot of just dump the ball to Malik and let him do his thing. But I mean, you can't teach that speed. You can't teach that explosiveness. So definitely some interesting potential there.
Yeah, maybe that guy could be like a specialist kind of guy. Obviously,
Yeah.
he'll do kick returns and punt returns. That's the guy you want back there. So that makes sense. So, and one more guy before we got to kind of get to some of the guys that we're still waiting to see what they do, whether it's a flip or a commit. I'm intrigued by because we don't get to see him much. Obviously, are the kids that are up in Central Florida and even Georgia, like your Thomas Davis and Desean Troutman, bigger kids, right? Thomas Davis 6'6.5". 235, and then Desean Troutman still needs to put a little bit of weight on, but that's another kid that could probably play inside linebacker position and plays up there in Edgewater. What have you seen out of those guys?
Yeah, Thomas Davis is a guy that plays a lot of linebacker for Lowndes, a nationally ranked program. I think they just suffered their first loss of the season, and I know they've been off for a few weeks because I think they're dealing with some COVID issues or whatever it is that teams deal with in 2020. I haven't seen Thomas Davis play in person, like just what I've seen on tape. Obviously, he was a defensive player of the year in Georgia in a high classification as a junior. So I think that tells you everything that you need to know because Georgia is basically on par, or I think per capita, producing the most NFL talent, for given the population and all that stuff. Georgia is doing it at an elite level. So for Thomas Davis to be considered arguably the best defensive player in a top region in the entire state, I think says a lot. So I think he's a really good player. I definitely like him as that specialist pass rusher guy. I kind of get the role there. You could probably take one of those guys every few years because obviously you can't stack up 6-foot pass rushers, but you throw one in there as just a speed package dude. You can definitely make some interesting things happen. Desean Troutman is just a guy that plays with a chip on his shoulder, just a mean guy, has that aggressive streak that you kind of want in your linebackers. I could see him coming in here and probably not playing right away, but getting into that developmental program and just really having that mentality of an OG, Miami Hurricanes type of linebacker. And I think that's valuable. I think that, he was a part of an Edgewater team last year that went toe to toe with St. Thomas Aquinas for a state championship. And that was a really close game. And, Desean Troutman was one of the reasons why, he's one of probably the top defensive player on that team. So yeah, definitely two intriguing prospects there for sure.
This is why you see this is what I'm saying, Gabby. Like a guy like Thomas Davis. I mean, Georgia's Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, maybe in a different classification or whatnot, but a 3-star athlete, a 3-star guy, right? Rated a 3-star guy. How does a guy that's Defensive Player of the Year, whether he's an in-betweener, or whatever the case is, still be considered a 3-star athlete? I'm sorry, a three-star player in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, so the stars are all based off NFL potential, right? They want on draft day, they want to be able to say, we got it right. And at the end of the day, Thomas Davis is a good player, but how many 6-foot pass rushers are you seeing in the NFL right now? I mean, right. You can maybe name a couple. I honestly, off the top of my head, I can't name any 6-foot guys that are coming off the edge on any NFL team, really. You see a lot of 6'4", 6'5" type of guys. You're seeing the Greg Russos, the 6'7s. So I think a lot of it's based off NFL potential, and that's really what they want to get. That's really where they want to get it right. That's why at the end of the cycles, 24/7 Sports finishes with 32 5-stars, and the 32 5-stars are meant to represent the 32 first-round picks. So you kind of have to measure it that way to a certain extent. Sometimes it has to do with their frame. Really, these guys are just kind of trying to project long-term, not necessarily what they're doing right now, but what are they going to look like in 5-6 years down the line on draft day. So that has a lot to do with it too. It's not just obviously there's a lot of great players. You see 2-stars drafted in the first round all the time. There's going to be guys that fly under the radar. There's going to be 3-star guys that are going to make it. It's just kind of, they just try to gather as much information as they possibly can and then try to get it right. That's one thing I will say. A lot of people obviously have a lot to say about the rankings and all that stuff and how it's done, but I promise you there's a lot of brilliant minds going into it, and they're really doing their absolute best to try to get that right.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even know it was based off of NFL potential. I mean, that says a lot because you see guys like Chase Smith, who's a 4-star athlete, but long, lanky guy projects to the next level, and it's very similar because I did a lot of scouting back in the day for baseball. So it's very similar to how we scout baseball. We scout them off of major league potential. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now I understand why. And you know what? Regardless, for me, it doesn't matter. I'm sure you guys don't care either. As long as he produces, as long as he produces for the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah.
And we win, and they do well, then I don't care if he's a first rounder or a ninth rounder.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. Paul, I don't know if you have any questions, man. If you want to talk to Gaby here about anything, I'm sure you do. Look at him; he's got like a whole page full of questions, man.
I do, but obviously cornerback is a big issue right now. You know, not only with the team's depth right now, but also with recruiting. Can you get into a little bit about what the cornerback board is looking like? And because there's a lot of guys being mentioned. Like I've seen Darius McGee pop up again. Marquis Brown, I think, is close to a commitment because he was recently just asking for commitment edits. And any updates on Marvin Covington, I guess?
Yeah, okay. So I'll start with Marvin Covington, who you just mentioned. I was talking to him not a few weeks ago. I was talking to him like maybe last week just to kind of check in, just to see how things were still going with Miami and stuff. And he told me that they were still in regular contact. So this isn't a guy that Miami just offered and then just kind of said, oh, you have an offer now. And yeah, we'll check in and then we'll leave you alone. Like it seems like there's still some real interest there. So I like Marvin Covington. I like the tape a lot, honestly. Like he played a DeSoto team that had like 3 Division I wide receivers on there, and he came out with 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups. Wow. So definitely some nice stuff there. Marquis Brown, yeah, he is close to a commitment. I was talking to him today, trying to figure out when it was that he was actually going to commit, and he's not ready to set a date or anything like that. But, you know, I think Miami's obviously very involved here. I would watch out for Ole Miss. When I talked to him a few weeks ago at IMG Academy after that Northwestern game, he was telling me that, you know, he really likes T-Buck, Terrell Buckley, the defensive backs coach over there. You know, Virginia Tech has been a program that he's liked for some time. I think the SEC is really intriguing for him, especially just being at an IMG Academy team that's going to send a lot of guys to the SEC. So I think, and then also the Ole Miss staff has a lot of Florida connects with Lane Kiffin, Kevin Smith, guys like that. So definitely something to kind of monitor there. Demarius McGee, yeah, Tennessee commit. You know, this is a year that, you know, a lot of people have been saying that it's going to be based off the teams are going to have to show it on the field more than ever because you're not going to get kids on campus. And Tennessee's obviously a program that's lost 3 or 4 games in a row. They got worked by Kentucky. They lost a game to Kentucky and Arkansas that they've already dropped games to this year, apart from Georgia and another ranked team I can't remember. I think that was Alabama that beat them bad too. So maybe just pick off Tennessee's commit list. Terrion Arnold is still a guy that Miami really likes. He would probably sit at the top of the board, number 1 ranked safety in the country. Miami likes him at cornerback. You know, this is a kid that could potentially be intrigued by that. Florida, Alabama, Georgia, obviously going to be tough to beat. He hasn't been on Miami's campus, but, you know, Miami's going to kind of go down swinging there. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that cornerback board shapes out. But, you know, there's potentially a couple other names that Miami can turn to if none of those work out. I'm a big Jaden McBurrows guy, the corner at St. Thomas Aquinas. You can always go Charles Brantley, the Michigan State commit at Venice. Miami just offered Khalil Anderson, the pick commit from Atlanta. So there's a few other names to potentially watch out for there, but nothing probably concrete. And, you know, at this point right now.
Yeah, it's tough. At least you're hearing a lot more teams kind of start. A lot more players starting to pop up now. You know, a couple weeks ago when we were on, it was really, well, what are we going to do now? Is it Covington? Is it maybe just one other kid, Marquis Brown? And what is it with Ole Miss? I have this conversation with Jock, and he's talking about so many kids getting pushed to Ole Miss now. And I'm like, what is it with Ole Miss? Why would someone rather go play at Ole Miss than play here at Miami, especially if you're a local kid or if you're a Florida kid? What is the intrigue? You said Terrell Buckley, maybe. You know, maybe the ties with the ACC. And
Lane Kiffin's probably a fun guy to play for. It's a fun brand of football in Ole Miss. You know, you're playing, it's a full-on spread. You're going to be playing, obviously, in the best conference in college football. So, I mean, I can understand why you'd want to go to Oxford. Is a completely different story, especially when you're from South Florida. But, you know, to each their own. They gotta make a decision at the end of the day.
I think that's what happens to those kids that end up going from South Florida to Lincoln, Nebraska. You know what I mean? And they're like, whoa, okay, let me come back, right? So, like,
sorry, Danny.
Yeah, sorry, Danny. I know. Danny covers.
This is exactly what I said to him when he said, "Oh, why are kids going to Ole Miss?" Lane Kiffin. They want the big name and they want the new flashy toy. They don't care about history or whatever. They want like the Lane Kiffins, and they want the opportunity to like play for a coach like that. It's not necessarily about keeping them in state or having them,
Well, look, I mean,
play in Florida.
the truth is that half the actual studs that have played at Miami come from outside of the state of Florida, anyways, right? So, I mean, I'm fine. Go get some guys from outside the state of Florida too, and we'll be okay with that too. So,
Yeah.
Gabby, you mentioned a couple of guys that we talked about, Terry and Arnold, who seems like he's is it, correct me if I'm wrong, he seems like he's an Alabama lean right now. Terry and Arnold. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, all those programs are pushing. Florida's obviously an attractive location right now, just, him being a guy from Tallahassee.
Right.
Florida is going to be hard to beat for a lot of these guys with the way that they're playing football right now. So I think Florida is a real contender there. I also think Georgia's a real contender there. Alabama, obviously not super far when you're in Tallahassee and you're kind of like in the panhandle. Alabama's probably just as far from, like, Tuscaloosa is probably just as far from Tallahassee as Miami is. So, I mean,
Right.
from a distance standpoint, it's really not much to really debate about because it's really probably the same thing. So it's there's definitely some SEC programs, and then that's what you got to do, man. That's kind of how it goes sometimes.
I hear you, man. I hear
So
you.
is he
And
gonna play? Is he gonna play safety or corner at the next level then?
Yeah, so he's a safety. But this is a guy that does everything for that Pope John Paul school in Tallahassee. Like, this guy plays offense. This is a guy that returns, like, is in the return game. Like, I think he's this kid's, like, you just categorize him as a football player. Like, I feel like it's a lot of kind of the same way we kind of talk about James Williams. Obviously, you don't have the freakish size, but this is a kid that is just an athlete. Like, he can play safety. He could probably play corner if you want to. Is he open to playing corner? Or does he consider himself like, I have to play safety? Who knows? Like, we don't really know that. But I mean, I know Miami's telling him he can come in here and that they feel good about the way he could play cornerback for Miami and how much he could potentially help them at the position. And he's listening. Miami's a program that he's kept a part of his top group, and they've been in his ear a long time. Have developed a lot of relationships, but at the end of the day, he's never been here. And this COVID situation definitely isn't helping unless one of these commits do something like what all these quarterbacks are doing, that they're holding these like unofficial like visits for all the commits and top targets. Like JJ McCarthy just held one in Ann Arbor. Miller Moss has done it at USC. Garrett Nussmeier's done it at LSU. And that's honestly probably one of the problems of Miami not having a quarterback in this class, is that they haven't really had a guy to maybe set something up like that. I mean, I had imagined it'd be a lot of fun to do one of those unofficial, everyone come to Coral Gables this weekend and let's hang out in Miami type things. But again, that's something that just none of these guys have really stepped up and kind of done or put together.
I think we need that. But here's the thing, right? And then you get a guy like Quinn Ewers, who's from South Lake Carroll,
Yeah,
in Texas, and commits to Ohio State. Has he ever been to Ohio State? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know his situation. But those are the type of guys that the Hurricanes need to kind of get early and often. That's a 2022 kid. So the question is, Gabby, Danny, before we get to your question. Again, of course, has the ship sailed with Jake Garcia, and are we kind of looking elsewhere now? Because I think that's kind of died down a little bit on him, right?
Yeah, I don't think that anything's died down there. I think, they're going to continue to push for him. Rhett Lashley has a really strong relationship with Jake there, but, Jake's saying all the right things about USC and his commitment to the Trojans. And, I know on his Instagram or something, he was doing an interview with, I guess, a reporter there in Georgia. And they asked him about his recruitment, and the woman specifically mentioned Miami, and he was just like, I'll be at USC in January. I can't wait to get over there. So, he's saying all the right things about USC, but like me and Andrew Ivins were doing a podcast earlier today, and he's saying that quarterbacks have said that all the time, like Jalen Milroe saying all the right things about Texas, then suddenly he flips to Alabama. And it's like, when it's time for pen to meet paper, that's when these decisions sometimes really get made, when you actually have to sit there and be like, this is really what I'm doing. It's easy to say it, but it's one thing to actually go through with it. And I think Miami's just going to keep battling until the end and keep kind of trying to chip away and see what happens.
So say that Miami doesn't land Jake Garcia. Are there any other quarterbacks that they've been going after? And what type of style are they? And the reason I ask that is because King has opened up so many doors in the Miami offense. Are they looking at dual threat quarterbacks? Are they looking at pro style? Is there a specific style that they favor?
Yeah, so Rhett Lashlee's actually talked about this in the past. Like he wants a guy that maybe is not like a true. He maybe doesn't have to be a true dual threat, but he wants an athlete back there. He's talked about how he likes guys that are like multi-sport athletes that have played. He's talked about shortstops, outfielders, things like that. He wants guys that are able to just do different things, just be athletic. Like just don't be maybe not a Peyton Manning out there. That's just gonna kind of be a true pocket passer. Like, almost like a Shane Buechele type who you don't consider him a runner, but he can kind of go out there and escape the pocket if you can. If it's not Jake Garcia, Jay Allen, the Fort Pierce, John Carroll quarterback, dual threat guy, he's a Florida baseball signee now, so officially signed a letter of intent to go play baseball at Florida. He's also expected to be a top baseball draft pick. There hasn't been a lot of contact there, but that's a guy that Miami hasn't completely written off. If you turn on the tape, both me and Andrew have agreed that you see a lot of flashes of maybe not a De'Aaron King, but you definitely get that true dual threat type of thing. And this is an outfielder with a big arm, a big live arm, and just real playmaking ability, and definitely an intriguing prospect. Just because he signed that letter of intent to go play baseball at Florida doesn't necessarily mean that he can't sign a letter of intent to come play football at Miami. But again, this is a kid with a very, very strong baseball background, and it's seeming like that he's going to follow that path and potentially go just play baseball, potentially get drafted and get 6-7 figures in the MLB draft next year. So,
chances are he's not going to see.
There's a very good chance that doesn't happen. But I would say that's probably the only other high school arm. And then, later on as this cycle progresses, programs start doing bad. You see quarterbacks start looking other directions. Like you're seeing what Ole Miss is doing now to the Florida State commit, Luke Altmaier. And, there's crystal balls coming in that projecting him to flip to Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin's offense. South Carolina just lost a head coach. They got Colton Gauthier over there that, he's a pretty highly ranked quarterback. I don't know if there's been contact, but, these types of situations happen throughout the process where, maybe later on a quarterback does decide to, give Miami a fresh look, or Miami does turn their attention to a different quarterback. But I don't think anything like that has happened quite yet. And so we'll see if things change. There's still not that much time, but in recruiting, there's still plenty of time for things to happen because these things tend to happen very quickly. You even look back at that Jaron Williams situation where he was committed to Kentucky, got on a plane to Miami for the Notre Dame game, and suddenly he was a Miami commit. So, we'll see what happens, but definitely nothing super concrete at this moment.
Well, what you're probably going to see is, look, I know a lot of fans and people, talk about we need to build depth, and we need to build with young guys, with kids that we recruit that commit out of high school. But the truth is Miami's always been a trend-setting football program, right? So they're always going to do things a little bit differently. And to be honest with you, the transfer portal has been so good to them. Has it been bad? Sure, it is what it is. But they've had so much success with the transfer portal as well that you're going to see kids, right, come out of there. Like the kid from Vanderbilt, I'm sure is going to look from Miami, the cornerback that decided to enter a transfer portal. You're going to get other kids like that. Quarterbacks, I'm sure, are going to start entering too. So you're going to see a lot of that as well. That's obviously going to play. And Gabby, I want to get your take on this. That's going to play a big part, a big role in how some of these kids commit to certain programs as well. I would assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see programs kind of hold a few spots for grad transfers or transfers in general. Like in January, they're expecting the one-time transfer rule to be kind of approved. So it's not only going to be grad transfers, you're just going to have kind of like a free-for-all of one-time transfers. Like you get one shot to kind of make a second decision. So like, especially in this age where, these coaches have not been able to make a lot of evaluations, at least not see a kid in person, size him up, get his weight or whatever. They're just kind of going off film. So are you going to take a chance on a high school kid that you like, but maybe you're not sure on? Or are you going to roll the dice on a guy that has college tape that you can actually sit there and evaluate? So I think that there's definitely got to be decisions to be made there. That's why I would expect Miami to hold a spot, potentially two, for a graduate transfer or just a transfer person in general. And, if De'Aaron King does leave, I would expect Miami to be very aggressive in trying to bring in a transfer quarterback that would be able to come in and compete, because, at the end of the day, you're going to open up with Alabama, or who knows now with COVID and all that stuff, if that game even gets played, but you're expected to open up with Alabama, and you do not want a redshirt freshman. Well, I mean, maybe you do if he's the best guy, but I'm not sure how much you want a redshirt freshman making his first career start in Tyler Van Dyke in Atlanta in a primetime game like that, or fifth-year N'Kosi Perry that we've kind of seen what he kind of offers. Like, I think Miami would potentially turn the direction somewhere else if De'Aaron King does leave. If he comes back, I think they would still potentially hit the transfer market, maybe go someone younger, or maybe just try to find a high school arm that they can kind of bring in and develop. But yeah, still a lot of unknowns there, a lot of different ways that can kind of twist and turn still.
Listen, if we are starting N'Kosi Perry next year against Alabama, we got some serious issues, brother. I mean, that's just the way.
Yeah, and there's a chance that he can graduate transfer. Like, I believe he might be graduating now in December. So there is a shot that N'Kosi Perry tries to find a new home and go somewhere else. And Miami's then really, really tight at the quarterback position. So I mean, that's definitely not something that can't happen as well.
What do you mean? You don't have faith in Peyton Matoka?
Yeah, bro. We'll see.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens after early signing, the early national signing day or whatever you want to call it. I think
for sure.
I think you guys got a lot of work cut out for you now too, coming up within the next 4 weeks. You go to a lot of games. The big one this week is Northwestern and American Heritage, right? You get to see a lot of Miami commits there, but you also see some kids that maybe haven't committed yet or are on the fence to maybe flip, or anybody that we should look at from that game, aside from obviously the guys that we already know, right? The James Williams and Romello Brinsons and Cameron Kitchens and all these guys. Obviously, we can go on and on and on. What are some of the guys that maybe you're looking at from that game? Period.
Yeah, so one of my favorite prospects that I've seen, honestly, just being on the trail a lot is American Heritage defensive end Marvin Jones Jr. I think that this kid is – I think this kid's a monster. I think this kid's just freaky from a size perspective. I think he just has just such a knack for getting to the quarterback. I mean, obviously, it's in the bloodlines. His father, Marvin Shatrey Jones, is a two-time All-American at Florida State, first-round draft pick, played 11 years in the NFL. Doesn't really feel the obligation to go to Florida State. So Marvin Jones is a guy that I'm really, really intrigued by. Definitely just probably one of my favorite prospects that'll be on the field Friday night. And so, yeah, that's probably my guy. Mark Fletcher is also a running back for American Heritage. Big kid, sophomore, top 100 sophomore for us on 24/7 Sports. And, is like legit 6'2", 215, 220 pounder as just a sophomore. The kid's like 15, 16 years old. So just absolutely ridiculous size and just things you can't teach. And so definitely an intriguing prospect at the running back position there for the Patriots as well.
Yeah, that should be a good game out there, man.
It's gonna be great.
I think Paul mentioned that the only tickets that were available were for parents and for who else? Or parents and
parents, families, and I'm guessing media.
And media.
Yeah.
Right? So, obviously, yeah, Gaby's gonna be there. So yeah. I kind of want to end with this because we don't talk about it enough because I know we're so caught up with everything else that's going on. But the 2022 kids, Miami started off pretty good, has a solid class going on for 2022. Any kids that maybe are are close to pulling the trigger, committing for 2022, or some guys that we should keep an eye on, just early on right now?
I can't really think of anyone that's maybe close to committing. I just don't think Miami's really gotten there yet. I just think they're really focused on just winning this season off the bat. Like, even with recruiting the 2021 class, that's why they're kind of glad that they got like the James Williams, Leonard Taylors to kind of commit before the season, because it just gave them an opportunity to focus in on what they need to do. And ultimately, Miami needs to win before anything. So I think they really made that a priority. And you've kind of seen that. I don't think that Miami's picked up a commitment from anybody since the season started. And I think that's just kind of a product of that, like not necessarily pushing for anybody. So names to watch in the 2022 class. I think maybe potentially Braden Locke, the quarterback out of Rockwall, Texas. He's a kid that, he vacationed in the Florida Keys with his family, made it a point to come to Coral Gables, check out the campus on his own without interacting with any of the coaches or the staff. So he's a kid that actually has been on campus before. Rhett Lashley's offered him twice at SMU and at Miami. And this is a kid that just puts up stupid numbers in Texas. Like, go on Max Preps and look up Braden Locke's numbers, and you're going to be like, wow, like this kid just absolutely slings it. He went head to head with Quinn Ewers, who just, again, like you mentioned, just committed to Ohio State, and he beat him. Like he straight up outplayed Quinn Ewers, came from behind 21 points and found a way to win that game. It's just like the kid's like tossing like 5 touchdowns a game. So Braden Locke is definitely a kid to watch. Zion Turner, the St. Thomas Aquinas quarterback, another name that you can potentially look out for there. There's a whole mess of guys. That's 2022 class. There's definitely a lot of things. Earl Little Jr. is a guy that's going to be playing in that game Friday, who is definitely a top priority for Miami. Just a lockdown corner. His father's Earl Little, the Miami alum. Then you got Wesley Bissainthi. I'm not exactly sure how to say his last name. The linebacker at Miami Central, and this is a guy that Manny Diaz himself really, really wants. So those are a few guys that off the top of my head that are just names to know in that 2022 class.
Yeah, good point, man. Yeah, awesome. Listen, maybe the next time we bring you on, we'll talk about a little bit more than just recruiting also, man. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll get some football going again. December 5th,
doubt.
obviously the Miami Hurricanes play was it Wake Forest? I don't even know.
Yeah, I think it's Wake Forest now. Yeah,
Wake Forest, right? That's going to be a good game because obviously
sure.
Sam Hartman can sling it over there at Wake Forest, and that's a potent offense. Obviously, we saw what happened with Wake Forest in North Carolina last week, and of course, then we play North Carolina, which is kind of like back-to-back shootouts right there. I mean, look, we were talking about this, Gabby. We'll end with this because we'll talk a little bit outside of recruiting. Defense is not winning football games anymore, man. It's all about the offenses. So when Canes fans start to get pissed off about the defense giving up points or giving up yardage, listen, we're number 47 in the country in total defense. Alabama's number 45, right? So I mean, we're right there. Clemson's giving up 22 points a game. Miami's giving up 24 points a game. So we're at a point right now where we just got to keep scoring, man. Keep playing offense, and our defense is good enough that they're going to get a stop or two or three, as you saw last week, and get the W and get a big win. And that's exactly what happened in a place like Blacksburg, where it's always tough to win there. So, I mean that's important, right? I mean, offense right now. I think you can. Well, I guess it all comes down to recruiting again. You're going to see a lot of college coaches, and obviously University of Miami is trying to find really some badass high school kids that play offense, huh?
Yeah, just kind of going back to like what you're talking about with the offense and stuff. Like, look up the stats of like the team stats of like LSU last year. I think they gave up 600 yards like 3 different times, like 600 yards. I don't think Miami's given up 600 yards this year. That 2019 LSU team gave up 600 yards. I think they gave up 700 yards against somebody. Like you gotta be able to score. It's a passing game. You're seeing it in the NFL. The NFL is turning into a passing league. You're seeing the Patrick Mahomes. You're seeing the Kyler Murrays. Just the gunslingers that they're gonna kill you. You gotta be able to put up points. And the defense probably isn't gonna win you a lot of games, but I'll tell you what, that defense won Miami a game last Saturday because I think Virginia Tech scored 24 points in the first. I can't remember how many, but I don't think the defense allowed 0 points in the last like 23 minutes of the game. So yeah, like the defense isn't winning you games, but I think people need to understand the way that the game's moving, and you have to be able to score. You've seen Oklahoma for the last how many years that they're averaging like 50 something points a game. They're giving up 45, but they're winning games by scoring 50. So obviously, I don't think Manny Diaz, being a defensive coach, is ever gonna hopefully allow it to get to that point. But the avenue to winning now is just simply scoring more. Like, you got to be able to put up points on the board. And that's what Alabama is doing, like you mentioned. Like, that's what a lot of these programs are doing. So just got to get a guy like De'Aaron King, and you always give yourself a chance to win.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Good stuff there from Gaby Urrutia from 24/7 Sports and Inside the U. Thank you so much for joining us, my man. I appreciate it. It's always good. Nobody does it better than you and your guys over there at 24/7 Sports, man. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. And also want to thank Paul and Danny Gillette. As usual, we're here always for you. No pregame show this weekend, but that's all right, man. We're taking it easy. We're going to go have some beers or something. Who knows? Have fun, Gabby. Thank you so much again, man. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Go Canes.
Thank
See
you guys
later.
Okay.